Hi, I'm Chris Cooper. Welcome to the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. Thanks for joining us. Today, we'll introduce you to a beneficial creature that can help control slugs and other bothersome insects in your garden. We'll find out more about caring for orchids, and we'll introduce you to a great way for you and your kids to learn more about gardening. All that and more is just ahead on the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South, so stay with us.
This is a production of WKNO Memphis. Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by Goodwin's Landscape and Garden Center in Germantown since 1943 and continuing to offer its plants for successful gardening with 7 greenhouses and 3 acres of plants, plus comprehensive landscape services. International Paper Foundation, the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Hi, welcome to the Family Plot. I'm Chris Cooper. Joining me today is Andy Williams. Andy is the director of the Lichterman Nature Center, and Natalie Wilson is here today. Natalie is the manager of events and programs for Shelby Farms Park Conservancy. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having us.
Andy, you have a friend for us today.
It's an animal ambassador. And actually, you won't find this in your backyard, but...
oh, really?
No, Memphis has about five or so different types of lizards that are native to this area.
Okay.
And at least 3 of them are skinks. This is a blue-tongued skink from Australia and New Guinea. And we use him as an education animal because of its size and the fact he's so quiet. Right. In addition to skinks, we have things like fence swifts and race runners. All implies they can move with the speed of light, and they do. This particular lizard gives us a good opportunity to talk to people about the basics of lizards. Okay. You know, that they are reptiles, they're cold-blooded, they have 4 feet, they have external ear openings, and they can blink their eyes. The blue-tongued skink, he'll go in and out, but his defining characteristic is a blue tongue.
And he does have a blue tongue?
He does have a blue tongue. I've seen
it. There it goes.
Yeah, it's actually a sensory organ. You talk about olfactory senses and all. They take them to just an incredibly different level. They sample molecules of air, press them into a special sensory organ in its mouth, and just get all sorts of complex information about what's going on. Blue also is somewhat of a warning coloration. I mean, it's kind of fierce when you see the blue tongue. However, this animal's main defense is to open its mouth wide. It's got just a rosy red mouth, and that gives it some true warning coloration. Okay. Our native skinks have similar sorts of coloration, except they're monotone on the back and tail, but the sides have different stripes. Like there's a 5-line skink, and the stripes can help you identify the particular lizard that you may have in your backyard. Okay. When they're young, most our native skinks have blue tails. And I was talking to a herpetologist the other day about what's the most amazing thing people have told him about lizards that's not quite correct. And he thought about it a moment and said that the people think that the blue tails indicate that little lizards are venomous. And lizards are not, at least in our area, are not venomous. Okay. And there are relatively few lizards that even have, bad side effects. A lot of it just has the bacteria that grow in the mouth, can cause wounds to be infected. But we have this all over the place. They're great hiders. In fact, the blue-tongued skink that we're looking at right now lives, in leaves and under logs, and basically waits for food to come to it. Okay. This animal's favorite food are snails. And a lot of our native skinks also eat snails, slugs, crickets. They have a high insect count in their diet. Okay. And so they go around nosing around. Like if your hostas get eaten up by snails, you don't notice it till it's too late. But if you have lizards on the prowl in your yard looking for slugs and snails and such, they're ahead of it. And the more lizards you have, the less likely is that some of these pests can build up to undesirable levels.
I consider that to be beneficial then.
Oh, absolutely.
Slugs
and they're fun to watch. They spend a lot of time sunning. I mentioned they're cold-blooded, and so they get their energy from the sun. Okay. And they use the sun to regulate their body temperature. Our native lizards, like I mentioned earlier, run really fast. Their main survival mechanism is that they have like a separation point in their tail that the tail will come off. And so with the tail, the nerves still fire, it wiggles, and so they run off while someone's thinking they've got something juicy.
How about that?
But it's really tough on the lizard. It uses a lot of energy to grow it back, and the tail does not grow back exactly.
Okay.
It's a different sort of tissue that comes back.
I wonder how long is that process, though? Grow that tail back?
It depends on the condition of the lizard, the temperature, and the abundance of food. So it just depends from lizard to lizard. I've had some, and it looks gray. It's not attractive, but they do live to see another day. The lizards in our area do lay eggs in the same sort of places they like to hide, like under leaves, logs, this sort of stuff. The eggs look sort of like, depending on the size of the lizard, sort of like chicken eggs, but obviously a lot smaller. But they're leathery. Really small skink eggs look sort of like Cocoa Puffs or something. They have a different, that sort of aspect. Some skinks do have communal nests. Someone finds a good spot, they exercise no parental care. Someone will just lay their eggs if someone else found a good spot. Here in the South, they hide out in leaf litter and such.
Okay.
And so I encourage people to garden for wildlife and create lizard habitats, but you may or may not want leaf litter piled up in your yard. At my house, I'm lucky to have a not wooden, but a wooded area kind of in the back I can let pile up. But there are family projects you can do to encourage lizard habitats. You can take inexpensive flower pots and layer them with materials that the lizards can duck through. You could use PVC, round stones, pieces of wood, sticks, and that sort of stuff. And if you want to, you could even paint it on the outside. The main thing that lizards just have to be able to get in there to hide, and it ideally needs to be someplace where they can bask in the sun. Okay. And when you see lizards out, you're typically watching them bask in the sun. You have to watch them from a distance. They will not sit still. Okay. like this character is. And exactly, these, like I said, burrow a lot, and a lot of our native lizards do to, when the winter comes, they find a nice, a secure spot to go into hibernation.
How many young do they have?
Well, it varies. Our native lizards, like I said, are egg layers, and their clutches, I think 3 to 5 eggs would be typical. Okay. These are live bears. They reproduce once well, they have eggs once a year. The eggs actually, well, they mature inside the body, and they actually hatch inside the body and then come out. So the young are born alive and outside the shell.
Okay. It's pretty neat.
As far as keeping lizards for pets, it's really tempting. You see them out in the backyard. If you can catch one, you think, well, it should be easy if they live in the backyard. Actually, lizards are not hard to keep in captivity, but you have to meet their requirements. There are care sheets available online, but before you get into keeping a lizard, you should know that they need full spectrum lighting, which your setup costs are expensive. They need a basking spot. They need a hide box. They need a water bowl they can get in and soak, but get out. It's pretty complicated. Wow. Also, if you get a lizard for your family, you should the adults should have a keen interest in it. For example, this particular lizard in captivity lives easily 20 years. Wow.
That's pretty good. Okay.
Growing up, I hated my hamsters died, so soon, 1.5 years, but my parents were rejoicing. Yeah. But if you take on responsibility for a lizard,
20 years.
Yeah, and they're smart. They think like lizards. You want to be smart. It's almost a human term, but they come to recognize people who care for them regularly. Sure. They recognize the signs that you're getting ready to feed them. Wow. This particular lizard is omnivorous. They eat vegetable and animal material. We deliberately, because they can tolerate it, keep his diet very high vegetable. But when you commit to keeping an animal on a particular diet, you've got to make sure that it meets their metabolic needs. That it has the right amounts of vitamins, particularly D. It's not difficult, but you've got to do your homework, and you've got to do it right.
A lot of care. I don't think my mom would love me having a lizard at home. I don't think she would like that idea.
Well, My parents didn't either, but I had 22 aquariums with, I learned how to, with things I caught, which is not particularly legal, but it's a good learning experience. But if you're considering a reptile as a pet, the adults need to be adults.
All right, good deal. So still. I like that. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you enjoyed it. Up next, we'll visit the greenhouse at the Memphis Botanic Garden for a few tips on growing orchids. But first, here are a few gardening events going on in the next couple of weeks that might interest you.
The idea that orchids are hard to grow or they take, people with lots of knowledge to grow them and everything else, no, it is not. With the internet, the knowledge is right at your fingertips. All you have to know is where to go to look for the information or who to ask. They've been growing for millions and millions of years, and they know what to do by themselves almost. All we have to do is just provide a modest amount of applied knowledge to them, and we can create enormous flowering plants every year, year after year. And if you know what time of the year that they flower, you can have flowers growing all year long at your house. There's basically two types of orchids, epiphytes and lithophytes. The lithophytes, they grow in rock faces and stuff and live in sparser conditions, where the epiphytes, they grow in sides of rocks and trees, and they live in the forest between the top of the forest to the bottom of the forest. So where they grow at and how they grow is very unique. There are places like Madagascar where you'll never find another orchid like it anywhere else. That's just where they grow, and that's where they're limited to. But by collecting orchids out of the wild and growing them, we've been able to increase the population of orchids throughout the world and to help protect the species as well. Phalaenopsis, Dendrobiums, Cymbidiums are three of the most prolifically sold from department stores, grocery stores, hardware stores, and places and such. Yes, they can last and you can grow them. Phalaenopsis, the moth orchid, is the most common that you'll see. They're prolific flowering plants. They will grow many blooms. They will last very long if you have them in prime conditions. The two most common areas of orchid misconception is they need more water when they need less. So water less if you're in doubt, but light and water are the two most misunderstood areas of orchid growth. Some of them like lots of light, but indirect light. So that doesn't mean that they like direct sunlight beating down on their leaves all day long. The leaves will burn. They can't take it. But they can take filtered light. And so that's what they like for us to mimic in greenhouses or backyard or indoors. Don't always believe everything you read. If your orchid instructions tell you to drop 2 or 3 ice cubes on it once a week, I would suggest avoiding that. That's like giving the orchid an ice cold shower and it doesn't like it. It takes maybe an hour for the ice cubes to dissolve, and orchids don't like that. Most orchids, low 50s is about as much what most of them will tolerate, although there are some that grow in extreme northern areas and extreme southern areas where they get closer to the polar ice caps. If you want more specific knowledge about orchids, it's very easy no matter what locale you live in. There's probably an orchid society someplace nearby that you can attend, and you can learn a lot about orchids there and gain vast amounts of knowledge very, very quickly and easily.
All right, Natalie, can you tell us a little bit about the Green Line Gardens?
Yes. It's a new a project that Shelby Farms Park Conservancy is taking on, and it is a part of a 50-acre plot of land that, in partnership with Memphis, our Memphis City school system, and then the new consolidated school system, we have have broken out where we are growing the food that are feeding our children in the schools. And so it's really exciting to see from the 42 acres that we're growing, and then we have broken off 5 acres, which is a demonstration garden. Okay. This acreage of land is, we're doing different types of models, from raised beds to row crop and all different kind of gardening techniques. And we're bringing school children in, and we have partnered with our Memphis area Master Gardeners, which we're excited about.
Excited about that.
And we're hosting a series of workshops every month. The second Saturday every month is the children's workshop.
Okay.
This is where kids are engaged, learn gardening tips, learn horticulture, learn wildlife exploration, all in the park. And then on the third Saturday of every month is for adults, and these are led by our Master Gardeners. They are in. We are building an outdoor classroom in the Green Line Gardens, and it's just a beautiful area on the Green Line, right at the trailhead of the Green Line. Those who love to ride their bicycles can stop at the Green Line Gardens at Farm Road and Mullen Station Road and learn about gardening, learn about some of these natural perspectives that in the urban setting we don't always get. And I think especially for kids to be able to come, to the nation's largest urban park and learn some of these just basic skills that it's for a lifetime.
Okay.
So,
now, age range for kids?
Kids all ages.
Okay, all ages.
We're especially focused on ages 6 to 13.
Okay.
Because we feel like that's just such an important age range for learning techniques that they can implement as an adult. So that's for children, that's the ages. And then we're encouraging parents to come to these too, these workshops with the children. And then the adult workshops are for starting at age 18 and above.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any fees associated?
It's $5, and that just covers just our materials during the workshop. And we provide scholarships for those who can't afford to be a part. So we bring lots of groups in. We're focused on partnerships with other organizations and schools. So we love it. We're seeing lots of interest, and we've only had 2 workshops so far. So we're excited about our upcoming workshop.
Okay. Now, if people wanted to find out more information about the workshops, how do they do that?
2 ways. They can go to shelbyfarmspark.org, which is our website, and look under events and programs and see some of the great topics, birds and butterflies, how to, seed germination, all these different areas that they can learn and grow and explore.
Okay. And I think it's a good thing for kids to now see where their vegetables come from.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking at dirt. One child said, "We're going to touch dirt today." Just a basic, that we take for granted.
Right.
Get the kids dirty and get them outside.
Yeah, I ask kids all the time, so where do you think your fruits and vegetables come from? And you should hear some of the answers that I get. There's Walmart, Kroger, Aldi, places like that.
Right.
So,
well, and so many kids today, especially in our school system, are in what are called food desert areas.
Yes.
They're not exposed to being able to grow their own food, and so we have to tackle that. And ways are just these homegrown ways, like the Green Line Garden Workshop Series, to bring kids in some of these in those food desert areas and teach them how to grow.
Okay. Andy, I think you were going to say something?
Well, given the convenience of the location, do you think the kids bring their parents by to have a look? And a lot of parents need this information too.
They do. We're seeing groups from Binghamton just riding the Green Line up with their bicycle up to the Green Line Garden and enjoying the workshop. So we really hope it will grow. We love partnerships with the park and having the Master Gardeners involved in this and taking ownership of the topics has been fantastic.
Okay. And definitely like to thank you for that too.
Yes,
I know
it's
we talked about
exciting.
that. It was a vision that we both had, and it's working.
It is.
So I think that's pretty good.
Yes.
Nation's largest
urban park.
Urban park.
Yes.
How about that? I don't think most people know that.
Right in the center, in the center of Shelby County in Memphis, is this beautiful gem of a park that it's everybody's park. It's our community park, and we're 4,500 acres, and we share management with AgriCenter International, which oversees 1,100 acres, and then Shelby Farms Park, the rest of the acreage that we oversee, and everything from bicycling to paddle boating and lakes and fishing and everything you can imagine to get outside and explore. Trails.
And the Green Line, of course.
Yes, that's right. And it just travels through our city. We're looking on the expansion process of that.
Good.
Being such a large park, it takes organizations to come involved to be. And our Master Gardeners have really helped us to have a vision for our horticulture in the park and what to do and how to oversee that, to ensure that we create our native planting and our tree systems. So,
well, thank you, Natalie. I mean, we're glad to help.
Yeah,
we definitely appreciate what you guys are doing out that way too.
Thank you.
So thank you. All right, good deal. Now here's our Q&A session. Okay?
Okay.
And Natalie, you just feel free to jump on in there if you want to, all right? Here's our first question. My roses look twisted at the top. They have a lot of red thorns on them. What is causing that? And I see you, Andy, you're like, oh, I know what that is.
Yeah, it's witch's broom. It's the name for the condition. It's a virus that's carried primarily, I think, by mites. I think sometimes can it be airborne? Read a little bit about that, but the main thing, it's a virus. And the witch's broom is a great name for it. Once you get it, all you can do is dig up and destroy the plants that are infected. There's no cure. It's transmissible by a variety of vectors, and by destroy. Well, I grew up in a small town. We would have burned the plants, but here you need to bag them up and put them into the solid waste. You do not want to compost that because you're just spraying out. And unfortunately, it's one of the few things that are affecting knockout roses. Roses are just not a good fit for our area. I just kind of put it mildly, but under protest, I planted some knockout roses and have been sold ever since. Some friends of mine who are basically, pretty hard-edged native plants enthusiasts keep looking at the knockout roses and saying, up until recently, I wish I could find something wrong with this because it's such a great, great plant. But it affects. It's one of the few things I know of that affects knockout roses, and once they get it,
That's it.
That's it.
That's it. Yeah, it's rose rosette is what it's called, and it is transmitted by mites. Rapid elongation of the new stems, the new shoots. It has the excessive thorniness, along the stems. Has the small distorted leaves. Pull it out, get rid of it, bag it. Right now, our extension pathologists actually running some experiments, trying to find out some cures for that, but it's definitely a problem. And, everybody likes knockout roses now. I mean, I've seen those things at gas stations and nobody's even taking care of them, and they look beautiful. But it is a problem.
And most people, it's hard to have just one rose. Most people.
I'm one of those. Yeah.
Okay.
So
so it can just wipe out your collection.
Yeah, definitely one. You like roses, Natalie?
I love them.
Okay.
But exactly, they're just impossible to grow unless you know how.
And can control the humidity.
Right.
Yeah.
Even with all the horrible chemicals you have to use. The humidity just sets you up for powdery mildew. I mean, there's just not a lot you can do about that.
And some other things. Okay, well, there you have it, rose rosette. Here's the second question. Can I prune back my figs now? Usually for your fruit trees, late winter, early spring, we're pretty much in that window right now. First, I would, prune back anything that's crossing, anything that's dead or diseased. You don't want to cut back more than a third of that plant, okay? So just be mindful of that. But yes, you can do that. You do have a window right now to get that done. Be swift about it, please, because we don't know what the weather's going to be like. It's been up and down. But yeah, make sure you do that. Again, crossing branches, anything that's dead or diseased, go ahead and knock those out. You should be fine.
Are there any different pruning protocols for different cultivars, or are all figs treated about the same?
Treated pretty much about the same, yeah. The thing that I've seen is most people try to control it because they get so big. Yeah, so they want it more like a shrub, so to speak. So about the same, okay? Just be mindful of that window, though, to get it pruned. Here's our next question. What are the trees that are now blooming along the roadsides? They have white blooms, flowers on them. The only thing I could think of, Bradford pear.
And Bradford pears, bless their heart, to say the South. I mean, they can be beautiful. I mean, they bloom. The leaves come out early. They're nice color changes. They're pretty in the fall, but and also they're fast growing.
Yes,
like if you're in a hurry to get some tree coverage in your yard, they will grow quickly.
Pretty quick.
But the side effect of anything that grows that quickly are weak wood. And so if you combine weak wood and even on well pruned, but even on especially in poorly pruned plants, they just fall apart on you. Just section by section. Also, the birds enjoy the fruit, and so they spread it around.
Sure.
And I don't know if the viewer was talking about the medians with Bradford pear.
Yeah,
or
that's what I didn't know either.
But the sides, I mean, we call them feral Bradford pig, not pigs, but pears. Rather. Yeah. I mean, they grow everywhere. I mean, the seeds germinate readily, and they can take over. Eventually, it may be the case they'll displace a lot of native species, but there are all sorts of good substitutes. One kind of direct substitute size-wise, people do red maples, but also red buds can work.
Okay, yeah, very invasive though. And they're beautiful this time of the year, but can be invasive. Real tight crotch angles cause them to split when we have storms, snow, ice, those kind of things. So, rapid repair. All right, that's all we have time for today. Don't forget, you can send a letter or an email with your gardening questions. The email address is familyplot@wkno.org, and the mailing address is Family Plot, 7151 Cherry Farms Road, Cordova, Tennessee, 38016. I'm Chris Cooper. Thanks for watching, and be sure to join us next time for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. Be safe.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by Good Winds Landscape and Garden Center in Germantown since 1943 and continuing to offer its plants for successful gardening with 7 greenhouses and 3 acres of plants, plus comprehensive landscape services. International Paper Foundation, the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.